Hello and welcome to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. We're on Blasted Rock and we got a very special replay for you, Blackheart and Voodoo. And what makes this very special, we actually have BC Napalm with us to tell us exactly what happens. So it's going to be a
Yeah,
two-player.
it's both of us, and hopefully this live replay sync thing works. So far, it seems to be working.
Yeah, there's a few
So,
bugs, but very big thanks to Patago Tohen for getting this. This will be great in the future. This is just the beginnings of it. But we'll try to be very thorough in this game. So Blasted Rock, what are your first thoughts about when you get spawned on this map?
well, first of all, I look for the reclaim. There's a few major rocks that are spread out, and sometimes those can be even more important than getting expansions on this map.
Yeah,
Um, so
definitely.
it's definitely the direction you expand should be centered around these rocks and trying to get as many as you can.
Absolutely. And you actually see some of the top players when they're going up against each other. A lot of manual reclaim. We see a little bit from Blackheart here. Actually, Voodoo as well. So both players here are not neglecting all those little rocks, like 10 mass each. But still, it's worth it. Looking at the build orders, a lot of land spam from Blackheart and Voodoo.
Oh yeah, and when you can see that these players go minimum power and they just put as much mass into tanks as they can, even the little 10 mass chunks of rocks will help.
Definitely. You can
Because
see.
once you get
Yeah,
5 of those is one tank.
yeah, so 7 PGens total for 3 factors for Blackheart. And it looks like very similar, at least 6 PGens with ACU, 1 PGen with an engineer. That's something that a lot of players do instead, including engineers building at the same time as the ACU and not on the same PGen.
Yeah, it's a little bit more power heavy early on, but once you start to get those P-gens, it can really help because you already have the P-gens instead of having to switch to building them.
And now we see the first raid. So obvious places to raid are these little cul-de-sacs with the hydros, and that's where we see the expanding engineers. And the Mantis, if we look at the Mantis from Blackheart in an attack move, he's got a scout coming in as well, but there is a Celine and a tank.
Yeah, I do expect Voodoo to see this, and the engineer should pull away.
Yeah, this
It is pulling away now, but I think Blackheart has it.
yeah. So the
So
first damage,
it was the first kill of the game.
and now this Mantis
And
versus the Tham. It looks like up on
really,
top, very similar situation with the Mantis already in position for Blackheart, but
yeah, but
Voodoo looks to be on it.
notice how the Mantis is guarding the rock, or at least it was. It was trying to prevent Voodoo from getting the rock
Yep.
because the rock is probably more valuable than the mechs at this point in the game.
Definitely. That's like the whole inflation with the mass. These rocks are huge. And now looking at the ACU for Voodoo moving out, look overall, Voodoo seems to have gotten the better of the early raids. Good defense. He hasn't raided himself. But now the ACU
But he is in
moving
the
out.
he is in the process of doing so, and I don't see how Blackheart can respond to that. So it's going to be a partially built Hydra that Blackheart will lose time on,
Yeah.
which is never good.
Yeah, he wasted all those resources that he put into a half-built unit, the Hydra. But a much more aggressive ACU for Voodoo. Blackheart will now pretty soon find out where Voodoo is going with a Mantis that will run into it. And we'll see if Blackheart changes his mind where he goes. Yeah, so this is the first contact.
It looks like Voodoo evens out the engineer kill count because he's killed Blackheart's engineer on top.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
don't know if Blackheart is aware of Voodoo's ACU, but he's definitely moving his units away, so he might be aware of it.
Yeah, it looks like the move order for Blackheart after he finishes the Mass Extractor, he's going to move back and face Voodoo. Yep.
Yeah, so he's definitely seen Voodoo. And
So overall, it looks like map control falling into Voodoo's hands.
sometimes on this map, it can be very dangerous if you see your opponent's ACU and you decide to pull back your own ACU. Because then you can just leave your own expansion vulnerable to a raid, and then suddenly your opponent has much more map control than you do.
Exactly, yes.
And Voodoo is going for some kind of run around here because
Yeah.
he's going to the opposite side. It's interesting.
Yeah, he did this
And
to me today. It sucked.
and he
Yeah,
has drawn all of Blackheart's units into his own base, actually. Blackheart has no idea where to send these. You can see without actually protecting it, Voodoo has basically made the engineer on top safe. because
Yes.
Blackheart is expecting this change of direction. And this whole time, Voodoo has this perfectly placed radar right behind the hill,
Exactly. Yes.
and he can see where everything is. Whereas
Yes.
Blackheart is lacking that intelligence, so he doesn't know what Voodoo is doing.
It's a perfect play by Voodoo. It's just the overall movement of the units. I think that's where the difference was. Although Blackheart now moving out with AC, he should be able to take over the top. On the bottom, he does have quite a few units, so it's still quite even.
Yeah, both players in a position to grab opposite expansions here.
And Voodoo's
Voodoo will
ACU
try
is so
to
aggressive.
Yeah, now he's completing his little ring, and he's gonna go directly at Blackheart's base.
Neither
And if
player really
nothing
wanting
else-
that land battle. Although Blackheart may be making a mistake running in directly, and Voodoo's ACU not pulling back. On top, total
Yeah.
domination by Blackheart.
Yeah, Voodoo will certainly lose those two reclaiming engineers, and the reclaim on this map, besides the rocks, is often neglected. Like these little trees which give power, those can
Yes.
actually be quite valuable.
Yeah.
So that's actually a bigger loss for Voodoo than immediately apparent. But here we see that Blackheart is pulling all the way back, and Voodoo has left an engineer on top.
Yeah, that's a
And,
big mistake from Blackheart not cleaning that up.
But Blackheart has bigger problems. He's forced to spam up a PD in his base. If nothing else, that's already a win for Voodoo.
Yes. Although Voodoo
250
also had to
mass.
make 1 point defense back at his base, actually making a couple more. But Blackheart just pulling everything back now.
This would be a good opportunity for Voodoo to pull south and kill the last remaining Hydro for Blackheart. Put him,
Yes,
Ahead
it's
in
wide
terms of
open.
power.
Yes.
and he is moving some units down there, so he sees that, of course. Blackheart, though, has some units in position to defend his Hydro, though.
Yeah, with very even units here between these two players. Voodoo retreating. Blackheart should get the benefit of a better reclaim after this battle, although up on top looks like a complete loss
Yeah,
from...
the top is just completely dominated by Voodoo now.
So after all those moves by Voodoo, what we have at the end is 3 bases for Voodoo. So all those movements, Voodoo really outmaneuvered, and that's very surprising. Usually Cybern players have the advantage with the speed, but here Voodoo with Seraphim was much quicker.
Voodoo's actually in a slight amount of danger here. He does need to pull back. He's not going to die anytime soon, but he can't stay in the area for too long. Blackheart has more units and the ACU in the area. But Voodoo will just try to push his advantage on the top. He can easily win any kind of battle that happens on top of Blackheart's base, so...
Exactly. And then once again,
He's
it's
gonna try
because
to
of that
push that.
radar. Voodoo is able to react so quickly, and it's that radar that he built.
Oh yeah, it's been allowing him to see exactly what Blackheart's doing. And unless Blackheart builds a radar like that of his own, which he's in the process of doing now, well, I think it's a bit too late. If he
yes,
had that
it's-
earlier, with the speed he might have had.
Yes, and Voodoo
An
has
easier
those
time.
artilleries in his force, which will really counter those point defenses very quickly.
Front line PD for Voodoo here to defend against Blackheart's ACU.
Yeah, he just finished it. And it's attacking the AC. I think killing a couple Manta would have been a better move, but it doesn't really matter too much. Oh, victory for Blackheart. And actually, inside Blackheart's base, there's a huge force.
Yep, and Voodoo has split off 3 tanks to kill the Hydro on top.
Yes, good move.
And you can see he's not just running directly into Blackheart's base, because that sort of thing can easily fail.
Yes.
But by
A lot of
staying
health
around the
there in the
outside,
factories, the point defense. He's just cleaning up. And actually, Blackheart here in trouble.
Yep, as Blackheart was trying to defend his base, Voodoo just outspammed him down
Yeah.
here because of his better map control. And really, Blackheart has no options left.
It's
Voodoo only has to block him off.
Yes. Very neat movement of tanks from the factories. No wasted units by Voodoo. Actually, either player. Both players played extremely well. The difference was Voodoo's overall movement around the map, which was allowed by that radar. I thought extremely well played game. Hopefully people enjoyed this one. We're going to do a couple more here. I think this was a good first game. Really enjoyed
Yeah,
this.
actually, our next one will also be Blackheart Voodoo on Canis River. A slightly longer game, but it should be just as good.
Yep. Go. Alright, so welcome to game 2. We're on Canis River. Yep. We're definitely recording. Once again, Napalm
okay,
is
now,
with us. Yep.
Never mind, I thought there was a problem, but are you at 15 seconds?
Yes.
Alright, so it synced us up. That's good.
Nice. And then this one, I mean, Canis River, I'm going to once again let Napalm talk more on this one. What do you do on this one? 6 mass extractors right away, a whole bunch of reclaim, very spread out. What do you do?
Well, first of all, I think it's a good idea to go for the Hydro with your ACU early on, because if you can get a lot of power early and you get 6 maxes, that allows you to spam a lot. And if you combine 6 maxes with all the reclaim that's spread out, that can lead to some huge spam battles.
Definitely. It looks like both the players are not going to the Hydra right away. It is actually a great raiding target, especially if you send an early light assault bot with radar so you can spot if an ACU is moving out.
Yeah, actually, some people will try to kill your engineer before your ACU gets there, and that can be really, really annoying if you don't get to start the Hydro first.
Yes, yes. And one way to end these games very quickly, works very well with something like Cybern actually, is to build first air and then rush the ACU to the opponent, and then the ACU and the bomber make it nearly simultaneously, and then you just destroy the other person's base. But usually pros don't do that. But that's been done to me a few times. It was extremely annoying.
Well, same faction as before. Well, actually, no, Voodoo switched to his UEF, which he always plays. And we're just going to see what he does early. Voodoo sends a very, very early engineer to reclaim the same type of rocks that we saw on Blasted Rock.
And actually here, it's very dangerous for that engineer. He does have a tank here with the Snoop protecting it. There is a Mantis in defense from Blackheart. Blackheart early playing very defensive. And this Striker actually very slow, but will win any battles 1v1 against the Mantis with proper micro. So it's a very dangerous unit from Voodoo.
Yeah, well, you can see why Blackheart is being so cautious. Look at where his ACU is. It's nowhere near the Hydro, so he really wants to make sure that engineer doesn't die. Actually, Blackheart going for just... oh, okay. I thought there were 4, but it's actually 5.
2 Manta. Blackheart sending 2 Manta to the side to go against the Strikers. Actually, he's going to get that early victory. It's the first action.
Yeah, just one more shot from the tank and the Scout might have had a chance to finish off the Mantis, but no chance of that now.
Yeah, so, we're going to have the battle of the Scouts here. Snoop should win.
Well, Snoop has to win.
And
it's going to run straight into the ACU, but Voodoo will know the ACU is there now.
Yeah, this is good intel from Voodoo.
But one thing Voodoo does get from that is that he knows Blackheart's ACU was back for a long time, so he'll know that Blackheart will probably have more factories than him.
Yes.
But strangely, that's not exactly what's happening.
Yeah,
actually, Voodoo with more factories.
Yeah, Voodoo stayed home for a long time as well. They were both usually building 3 factories over 2 factories is long.
Actually, no Hydro for Voodoo. I just kind of assumed he was going to get that without looking.
Yeah, Voodoo is one of those players who does not like the Hydra. I kind of agree with him in many cases. I don't know if I agree with him on this map, but the Hydra does take a lot of time. And on maps that you have a lot of reclaim, Pigeons are actually a little more efficient. It's a big argument. I don't know if we can solve that one, but Blackheart completely disagrees.
For me, the decision on whether or not to go for the Hydro depends on the map layout. So on a map like Finn's, I almost never go for the Hydro because it just dies way too easily.
Yeah, it's too difficult to defend. But it's nice if you want to rush a Tech 2 Mass Extractor there.
Oh yeah, if you want cheap early power, but you shouldn't be planning to hold on to a Hydro like that for too long.
Nope, some early battles, Manta versus Strikers here at the bottom choke point.
Voodoo has some serious numbers here.
Yep.
And better unit positioning. You can see more guns were facing Blackheart's units. Blackheart kind of has them in single file, which is never good.
And this early engineer just cleared out the entire middle for Voodoo. Very good Engie. Looks like it might just die here.
Reclaimed the entire river. Yeah. Voodoo is up to about actually only about 100 reclaim advantage for Voodoo, but that's mostly from that river. Yeah.
And the Voodoo's ACU extremely aggressive once again, forcing Blackheart to go back home. Point defense is being forced from Blackheart. It's a bit of panic and total map domination.
It's actually a great maneuver by Voodoo there. He brought his units in and swung his ACU around and kind of pinned the units against the river, and actually takes out the majority of those Manti. And Blackheart is definitely scared about this. He's got 4 engineers trying to spam up defense.
Yes, and now Voodoo is in retreat as he's attacking through the top choke. So as long as Voodoo plays well here, and he will face a very big force, it looks like map control firmly in Voodoo's hands.
But what we see here is Blackguard is not falling for the same thing that worked last game. Voodoo was trying to lure his units away and then attack on the left-hand side, but Blackguard already anticipates that
Yes.
and sends his units around. He might have
Yeah.
seen it with the scout, but
And here
at
once
the
again,
very
Raider.
least-
There is a good Raider from Blackheart in the middle. It could be a little more advanced, but it's good nonetheless. It gives him view of both chokes.
yes, it does. So at the very least, he won't be surprised by any sort of raid.
And a push here from Blackheart that yeah, he's gonna pull that back. Very even numbers.
At the moment, Voodoo is completely blind. He had an advanced radar that Blackguard killed, so right now Voodoo doesn't really know what's going on.
And a new
So-
radar for Blackheart, very good position. Once he has that, he's gonna have total view of what Voodoo's doing.
Yeah, actually now he can basically see almost the entire map.
Yes. And
And
very,
this-
still very even battle. A couple artillery here have been very good from Voodoo. Very bunched up Manti, but there is no Artie.
Speaking of Artie, I'm surprised that there isn't more Medusa.
Yep.
Yeah, or more
There's like
Medusas.
one.
Because Medusas are very powerful now.
And it appears that there is a total of 8 land factories now for Blackheart. And the air factory started for Voodoo. Voodoo only on 6 land factories. Getting a 7th.
Yeah, so Voodoo very slightly behind. But when the numbers are this close, it's really about unit control and micro and reaction time. Where Blackguard definitely, well actually not anymore, he did have the advantage, but now both players with almost identical radars, so they have very similar
Yeah,
radar
very similar.
coverage.
And that battle in the top choke point has been very even. I can't say who has the advantage, but a lot of reclaim in that position. Whoever grabs that is going to have big advantage.
Yeah, if any player can decisively win the battle in the top choke, which right now it looks like it's going to be Blackguard, then that'll be a huge advantage with all that mass there.
Yes, it does look like most of the units for Blackheart are moving up. There is a superior force for Voodoo on the bottom choke point. And actually both ACUs moving to the top choke point. I think both players recognize just how valuable that is. And they're just going to run away as a radar. Actually, no, power storage and a point defense being readied by Blackheart at the bottom choke point.
To me, it looks as if Blackguard doesn't care if Voodoo runs over the right-hand side. He's just kind of letting that go. He's way
Yes.
more concerned with taking the left. I mean, you can see he's just letting Voodoo have these mexes uncontested. He's planning a point defense instead of trying to push that way. And both ACUs in a race to get to the left because they just recognize how important it is.
And
Right now, Blackguard holding a huge advantage, and now that he has Medusas in here, it's even easier for him to hold the choke point. So
Yeah.
Voodoo's going to have to get his ACU involved here if he wants to make
yeah,
any
Medusa is
progress.
absolutely deadly at these chokes where the tanks are all bunched up. This could be very bad for Voodoo. He's going to join his units at 10 kills. Try to push back some engineers in position for Blackheart to take advantage of the reclaim. He's going to get the mass extractors first. Total even gameplay on the bottom choke point.
Yeah, the bottom is exactly even, and Blackheart's sending one engineer. He might try to get some kind of engineer reclaiming battle, but he certainly won't make any progress with an engineer.
The
And now,
UEF bomber on the field.
I was about to say a UEF bomber from Voodoo. I don't know
2
what he
kills.
wants to accomplish with it.
Well, he's got to do something about the Medusas. We'll see how well that does. So far, 2 kills after 1 pass. Voodoo, 15 kills. A bit of a mistake, I think, here from Blackheart. He's engaging without using his ACU. But he's got very big numbers. More bombers for Voodoo. Those are going to have to count. Blackheart moving in with the ACU with a bit of a health advantage. Voodoo about to get some veterancy.
It looks
And
like Voodoo pulled his units on the right-hand side a little bit too far to the left, and Blackheart sees the opportunity. He's moving up.
Yes.
So he will destroy the mass advantage that Voodoo had and actually tip it the other way. So now Blackheart with a mass advantage.
Simultaneous victories for Blackheart with superior numbers, and I think that was the mistake of the UEF bomber. The UEF bomber did not pay for itself. Blackheart pushing
Yeah,
up.
they just cost too much energy, and more energy means more mass spent on power. So
Yeah, looking
really,
at Blackheart's base, all land factories. You see a total of 10 land factories, nothing else, and superior numbers everywhere.
and if you look from his viewpoint, he's powering all that purely through reclaim, which is
Oh yeah, perfect
because-
power balance, perfect eco from Blackheart. 3,000 reclaim. Voodoo at 1,800 reclaim. Excess power, not enough mass. And now we're going to see a lot of, actually good bombers. Well, no, not really good bombers. Yeah.
I think bombers were really a desperate move from Voodoo.
Yeah, I don't
but
think he really needed to do that. I think he could have held his own. It could have been much more even. He might have had a slight advantage early on that he completely gave away. I think in even numbers, UEF can play with Cybern. The ACU is a little stronger. The Medusas would have probably gave Blackheart a slight advantage, but it wouldn't have been as big as it was.
I just wonder if Voodoo had the power to make bombers, he could have rushed something like the gun in his ACU or Gun
Yeah.
Tech 2, and either of those would probably have been better than the UEF bombers.
Absolutely. Although Voodoo here pushing Blackheart back a little bit, and he does have engineers in position to reclaim, he's got total disasters elsewhere. Still hasn't grabbed the Hydra.
Yeah, even if he manages to hold his own a little bit longer on the bottom, which actually looks decreasingly likely, he just has no power on the top. He has none of the mexes capped. And,
Yeah.
I mean, Blackheart with more than twice Voodoo's mass income, and it's
Yeah, Voodoo
just...
53 kills now, has lost the choke point. For sure, Blackheart full health in the AC will be able to secure this, no problem. Up on top, a fairly even match. I've seen a whole bunch of bombers from UEF with no kills, doing God knows what. And now Voodoo retreats 56 kills, needs to
So
get into the water.
Voodoo will have to go back to his own base now. Blackheart can easily follow him, assuming Voodoo even makes it that far. He's only 3 kills away from veterancy. 2 now.
Yeah.
He could stay and try to get one more kill. And
Yeah, there's one more shot,
just
There it is. 60 kills. I guess, I'm
I thought they got
confused.
rid of. I thought they got rid of that experience system.
No, I guess he needs to get 65. That's something new. Alright. There was no Tech 2 here to swing this. Maybe the scouts are worth less or something? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the Voodoo here is going to die.
It's really a moot point at this stage of the game because
Yeah.
Voodoo basically has no base left. So it's a rematch between Blackheart and Voodoo. Unfortunately, these two didn't play any more games.
Yeah, but there's a couple between Yama and Zoc, and I would love to see. Every time I see a game from Blackheart, I just enjoy it because he plays perfectly, and when he loses, which is very not often, it's something crazy like what Voodoo did in the previous game. If you
Yeah.
make a mistake against Blackheart, you just lose. It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, it's basically
So-
over. So I think we'll definitely do a couple more games. Definitely enjoying this. But we'll decide what we do next.
Yeah, we'll just have to sift through and find something that looks like a
Yeah,
good
and if
game.
people have good ideas for replays like this, I'm not sure how often we'll be able to do this. And other casters, join up with me and Napalm and do this more often. I think this is a lot more fun than just talking to yourself.
Oh yeah,
So-
by far.
Game 2.
And this is
This-
also great because you can actually see the player's eco. You don't have to rely on observer mode.
Yeah. This thing, big thanks for Patago for doing this, hearing our cries. So game 2 is over. So welcome to game 3. And this one we got Voodoo versus Deathly. Jotun is Deathly. Cybern versus Aeon. And once again, Napalm's in this one. And I'll continue asking the same question. When you get spawned on Eye of the Storm, what are some of the things that you got to do quick?
Okay, so first of all, for people who don't know, there's this tiny, annoying, whatever
Yes.
the hell it is, that is worth an untold amount of mass that you have to
300.
get.
It's
Well,
huge.
for me, yeah, it actually is huge. And you have to make a decision early on. Do you focus on grabbing map control? Do you go to the island? Do you do air? Do you go super early navy? There's
Yes.
a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, it's a great map in that regard.
But with all those choices, there's not really that much mass that you can work with. So, I mean, you can either go for aggression or tech, and either one works out pretty well because you have some rocks near your starting location. There's a cluster, and on the peninsulas there's a few, and of course
Yeah.
there's the
In the middle,
little
there's rocks.
object. Yeah, the
Yeah, and
middle
there's
also
4
has
of those together. That's a 1200 mass. And I think air is early on, especially very critical. You're right. You can go turtle pretty heavy on this one, and you don't need map control, especially if you go turtle and navy. It's very powerful if the other player doesn't find out. But usually, the player who wins air early on is going to have a big advantage. And Voodoo is one of those players who gets air most of the games, although Deathly as well. But Deathly, comparing Deathly and Voodoo, Deathly is known for grabbing very early Techno Mask Extractor. So let's see if he does that.
Deathly does tend to eco very heavily, while Voodoo tends to attack very heavily. So if it's what I expect, it should be a clash of styles.
Yeah,
it looks
like
like
here 4 air factories.
That's what I'm talking about. Looks like some. Well, no, just 2. And then 2 land factories.
You're right.
But still, 2 air factories, and he's got those planned at minute 2, so he's obviously got something aggressive in mind.
Looking at the middle, you can see plans for both players counting on the reclaim. Although Aeon on this map, you got to give him a big advantage, especially early on. Unless Voodoo can get a whole bunch of frigates out, and he does have a naval factory planned, although so does Deathly, but he's going to be a little later.
But it looks like very similar plans for these players. I mean, Deathly now has 1 air factory. He will end up with 2, which is exactly what Voodoo has done. He will also end up with 2. He has 1 currently. And they're both going to end up with 2 air factories, 2 land factories, and a naval factory at some point.
And looks like a transport. Yep, very quick transport from Voodoo.
That is one of the things that he does on this map. He goes for a very, very fast transport. He does it in pretty much every game he plays on Eye of the Storm.
He does that on Whitefire as well. And I've seen there was a Whitefire a couple of months ago where Deathly sniped that transport. He knew there was going to be a quick transport, and he took it out, and that put Voodoo so far back. It was a very long survival for Voodoo where he died.
Yeah, I think Guile casted that game. I'm pretty sure I watched it.
Yeah. And the history between these 2 players, they were first and second on the GPG net ladder right when it died. There have been huge rivalries, and I don't really think they like each other too much.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that. I was going to say they are not too fond of each other, so this is also just a bit of a grudge match. I mean, they've played each other so many times that it probably doesn't, it's not a factor anymore.
This is so close that transport got out just in time.
And Deathly seems to be a bit suspicious. He sees an air factory, but no units built, so that's the sign that
he's got attack moves.
And now he just changed that interceptor. He changed both interceptors. Voodoo also changes. Yep. Neither player knows what to do.
Yeah, but this is pretty great.
Deathly will take the middle. I see an Aurora.
The Aurora. That's the obvious move. If you're playing Aeon, you're going to see an Aurora. It looks like a bomber coming from Deathly to the bottom.
So if that coincides with Voodoo's transport dropping, that could be an awesome bomber.
Yes.
They could kill all the engineers. And Deathly with an interesting thing here on the top, he's going to reclaim the 3 rocks with the engineer and then try to block it off. Or, no, those are actually Voodoo's factories planned.
Yeah. I think he's going to meet the ACU. And looks like the bomber will be there just in time. The bomber is going to go after the Mantis, although, is it? No, he's going to wait for it.
Yeah, it's seen this stuff on the radar. Voodoo will split his engineers up now. Looks like 3 of them will die. No, 2 of them.
2. He needs interceptors there as soon as possible. I don't think he has them.
And Deathly is blocking the way there with his own interceptors, so Voodoo will not be able to get any.
Although 1 interceptor has got through. Yep, 1 engineer left. That transport needs to get out of there, I think.
Yeah, here come the interceptors. They're going to take care of that transport. And looks like Voodoo is just gonna make a run for the reclaimable.
Yeah, up on top.
Actually, he just got behind the bomber. So with inferior interceptors, he was able to take out the bomber. Now he's gonna go back and reclaim the transport and changes his mind again.
Up on top, that engineer from Deathly on the mission to reclaim those rocks is successful. That's huge.
Yeah, it's actually very nice. It looks like since his ACU is going down to the bottom, he knew he wasn't going to be putting a lot of effort into the top, so he just went and got the mass. Has he gotten the reclaimable object? I'd like to see this engineer go back and get the one by the beach. That'd be a perfect way to end that little mission.
Yeah, I don't really see it. I think he may have gotten it.
No, it's there.
There's a Tech 2 mask extractor for Deathly. He got so much reclaim that he was able to get it.
Yep. Actually, Deathly could have pulled that engineer on top back and gotten the small object. It's not a big deal, 300 mass, but now he's lost that engineer to the ACU of Voodoo.
Voodoo is a bit behind, but he is ahead in Navy. He does have a submarine and a frigate on their way. There's only a submarine about to come out for Deathly. This could be huge. If Voodoo can deny the Navy, that's going to be a big advantage against Aeon.
So now it's going to depend on who gets the first shot, because Cybern and Aeon subs very similar.
Yes.
So if Deathly would shoot at Voodoo's submarine first, well,
Yes,
if he were to shoot at the frigate, he would lose. But if he shoots at the submarine, it could be a draw.
That's what happened to me in that tourney, 2v2 tourney recently against Zlo. For whatever reason, my sub started shooting at the frigate instead of the sub.
And you
And
can
once
see
again,
now
that's exactly what happened. For whatever reason, the submarine started shooting at the frigate when it first shot at the sub. And now it's Aeon as well.
The health advantage there. And
This is identical
That,
to what happened to me. This is bullshit. I really feel for Deathly, but that's what happened.
and now it's basically a race. Will the submarine be finished before the naval factory dies? I think it will be.
But I don't think it's going to make the difference. That factory is going to die. There's another frigate out
But
for Voodoo. That's
yeah, this
halfway
is
on the way.
This is not good news for Deathly. The submarine will finish. If he target fires in time, he can kill Voodoo's submarine, but he's not doing that yet.
Yeah, these stupid Aeon subs, they don't fire at subs, they fire at frigates before subs. That's a really big problem. You have to manually force them.
That's pretty inconsistent with the way units in this game work, though. Is usually they target units that threaten them
Yes.
first, which
And it's annoying because I actually remember targeting that at sub, but for whatever reason, maybe I lost visual or something like that. It changed, and I was happy because I was ahead, and then suddenly my sub just turns and starts shooting something else.
So here we see Voodoo immediately going Tech 2 Navy as soon as he feels he's won the early naval
Yes.
battle.
He's already halfway on that, and here Voodoo is going to run into a whole bunch of point defenses up top. It's going to be a very important battle. Voodoo is in a disadvantage in terms of map control. You can see in terms of mass, Deathly is ahead by 13, and also in power.
He's got the middle. That's a huge component there in map control.
And Aurora's been very big pain for Voodoo. He hasn't been able to counter them. They're denying quite a few mass extractors up on top.
Right now, Deathly is in a very good position to hold on to both side expansions, or both corner expansions, I should say.
Yes.
And you can see how he's doing it here on the bottom. He's got his ACU to hold and engineers in the back to make spam factories.
But this submarine from Deathly is alive. It killed off the other sub, now it killed off the frigate. So Deathly can go back into the water right now, and he actually is. If he can get a couple frigates.
Well, now we have to see what Voodoo will go for. A T2 sub here could be very, very powerful.
Yes,
But,
definitely.
It depends on if he knows that Deathly... well, he will definitely know that Deathly has that sub because he's lost both his frigates.
Yes.
And Destroyer first for Voodoo.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think he doesn't have too many problems from the air, and the Aeon Tech to Air is not very good against Cyber Navy, especially when it got that boost in terms of anti-air from frigates and destroyers.
I think I would have gone Tech 2 sub first, though.
It's quicker. It's very quick. It costs less. You could really start denying Navy. It doesn't have too much damage per second, but you can really... I mean, if you just target the engineers, you kill them in huge amounts. Here, the destroyer is going to take a little bit of time, and Voodoo is sitting on a single... actually, he's got two Tech-to-Mass extractors. He is significantly behind Deathly, so Deathly, with enough build capacity, can build up a Navy very quickly, and he does have a lot of build capacity.
Yeah, and now he's obviously very worried. He's going to try to spam out lots and lots of Tech 1 subs. In huge numbers, Tech 1 subs can take on destroyers, but
I think
it's not
frigates
easy.
would have been better against the destroyer, especially against the Cyber and Destroyer, with a little bit of micro frigates are pretty good
Yeah.
against it.
They are. So now we're going to see a slight air battle. Voodoo can win it locally, but once Deathly's entire air force comes in,
Yeah.
well, actually, it'll still be pretty even.
It'll be very even. I think maybe a mistake from Deathly to fly in like that. Although it's still the
Yeah,
numbers.
if he had attacked all at once, Deathly would have won easily. I think he's still going to win.
Oh, there are a couple bombers coming in from Deathly. If he can take out a couple of those engineers, it's going to give him a lot of time. If
Yeah, it
those
looks like
bombers can get through.
and looks like they have. So,
Nice.
oh man,
Great bombing.
yeah, very good bombers from Deathly, and the bomber's still alive. I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't get a second pass off.
Yeah.
A third
There's more
bomber coming
bombers on
in.
the way.
But wrong target, targets the naval factory.
And a drop, actually engineer drop from Deathly on the left side is going to try to capture a couple mask extractors. And Voodoo
And
here,
actually, that's going to be successful too. Well,
not quite.
Yeah, just barely. More bombers coming in from Deathly, so he's pulling Voodoo apart in so many different directions here, and
Yes.
Voodoo is still unable to push on either of the corners. This is
Yeah.
Deathly is holding them both so well. It's now
And the
75
submarine
to
from
41.
Deathly is going to kill a couple more engineers. This is that hero submarine with 6 kills, although this destroyer is going to be out here momentarily. And that destroyer is going to have to do a lot for Voodoo to have any chance in this game. Otherwise, Deathly is significantly ahead. Tech 2 Navy now from Deathly. Tech 2 subs coming out.
The thing is, though, Deathly killed all that build capacity, and he has been able to build up his own engineers around his own naval factory.
Yeah, and he's got Tech 2 Engineer. He can get Tech 2 Power. He's going to get a destroyer. And he's going to get a destroyer before Voodoo would be able to get a destroyer across. So that destroyer from Voodoo needs to do something. And looks like Voodoo has an upgrade on his ACU. It may have been the gun. He's at least some of the shots looked really far. I think he might be in position
Yeah,
to take
that
over
is
the
the
corner.
gun. So he could take that corner, and if he would send the destroyer to the bottom corner, he might be able to make some progress there. But with the ACU in the area,
Instead,
it
he's
wouldn't
going
be too
to
easy.
send his destroyer to try to claim all those mass extractors that he's been denied. These auroras
think,
have been constant pain for Voodoo.
I think another good use for the destroyer would be taking the middle, and if
Yes.
need be, it could even go onto the middle, because then the subs from Deathly would be useless.
Although in the
But,
middle, it's quite difficult. You need to get those angles right. Those mountains are very good for protecting.
Yeah.
Voodoo attempted
But,
to take out the point defense,
yeah.
taking him a little while, but it looks like he will. We might see a naval battle here in the top corner here shortly. Tech 2 Air would be very nice, I think, from Voodoo if he had the power, but he might not have that.
Well, looks like Voodoo will finally be able to make map control somewhat even. He's going to take the top corner. But the problem
Yeah.
is, Deathly is in such a prime position to take naval control that Voodoo could find himself in a lot of trouble very quickly.
Yeah, destroyer already out. Deathly going for a third Tech 2 mask extractor. The Voodoo is going to get good reclaim here shortly. I think Voodoo here could take the opportunity to capture one of those factories. Aeon together with Cybern would be very nice.
Yeah, actually, he really should stop and capture. Anytime you have an opportunity to capture a different faction's tech, you should take it.
Definitely. Or you can actually let those factories live and have them keep making units which you can just kill as they come out. Well, that's a little more difficult to do with Micro, but
Yeah.
always an opportunity.
But he could have easily held fire with all those units and captured a factory or an engineer.
So now this force from Deathly looking very good. 3 subs leading ahead with a destroyer behind it. The Aeon destroyer is actually very powerful on this map. Long range, very good against stationary targets. It's not that good 1v1 against the Cybern destroyer with the Micro from Cybern, but with those subs I think it's will be very difficult for Voodoo. Voodoo starting a second factory. He's going to try to go make up a couple frigates. Also a cruiser from Voodoo.
A cruiser and stealth coming out for Voodoo. So stealth could theoretically be his way back into the game if he can keep Deathly from seeing his ships, and then he can
Yeah.
get some shots off that way.
And that
But
cruiser can really swing
the-
the air battle.
yeah, I doubt Deathly will fly over the cruiser though. But as I say that, he's being very careless with his interceptors on top.
And Voodoo is just
And,
going to run through the top.
And
That
Voodoo
destroyer, he should overcharge that. If he's got the gun, he's got nice range. I don't know. I don't think he's got stealth. But
Yeah,
if he did, he could sneak up on
the-
this destroyer.
The destroyer coming right up. Well, Deathly can see him anyway, but he needs to come up to the destroyer and overcharge. I don't understand why
He
he's
needs
just
to
running
dodge
away.
those shots. There's no reason. Yep, that was a nice dodge. He's going to get
And,
close.
Oh
Oh,
wow!
what just happened?
What was that? Did it hit the water?
I think it hit the water. I don't get it. Oh, it's huge lost opportunity. That's very unfortunate.
Oh, wow! And suddenly Voodoo in huge trouble. From
Voodoo needs to get behind this little mountain here. He needs to retreat, and Navy from Voodoo needs to come in. It can really make a big difference here. Although there's 2 destroyers.
Well, actually, one destroyer isolated for Deathly, and Voodoo will immediately pounce on that. So
This is an
coming
excellent
in
bet.
from
But
behind.
meanwhile, a drop from Deathly.
Yeah,
That's such a big pain.
I doubt he's gonna be able to micro that though.
Excellent work. Voodoo has played a lot of settings as Scruffy, of course, so he's very familiar with these battles on Navy. We should see him do some micro here.
This cruiser might be his downfall though. Just no torpedoes on that, and it's so
Yeah.
fragile.
If he can take care of these submarines, which he might be able to with the destroyer, this intelligence boat does have some capability in terms of anti-sub. But this destroyer needs to dodge.
And look at Deathly's side. Voodoo sending packs of Manti everywhere and killing off all the mexes. So actually the eco gap is still there, but it's not as bad as it was.
Another destroyer coming out. Some micro from Voodoo. Voodoo.
And the Tech
kills
2
off
sub
the
is
Tech
gone. Yeah.
That was huge victory there. I think we got to say that Voodoo there survived, but a big lost opportunity with that overcharge. Those destroyers are going
Yeah.
to continue to do damage.
He could have won that. He could have won that naval battle decisively if that overcharge hadn't hit the water.
Yes, that would have been huge. I think that would have been game over. Well, not game over, but it would.
But it would have been map control over. You should say.
Yeah.
There's all
And,
the map control would have slowly disappeared.
Couple more Tech 1 naval factories from Deathly. He's going to put more emphasis on it. Halfway built Tech 2 power generator from Deathly. I don't see any Tech 2 power yet from Voodoo. Voodoo slightly ahead on power, but still very even. As Voodoo's Manti continued, they completely dominated this whole right side, as you said. The battle on the left side has been stopped at this point defense. Where's the ACU for Deathly? He's back home, it looks like. Yes, he's just going to chill.
And it seems like neither player really cares about the bottom expansion. I think
looks
Voodoo's
like
content.
Voodoo is going to come back with his extra destroyers. It's going to be a big naval loss. Deathly's units here trapped, the 2 destroyers. Although big loss,
There
the
goes the
cruiser
cruiser.
goes down. That's a mistake from Voodoo. He should have kept that back home. Let the frigates come in, take the shots with the destroyers. Hit
Of course,
from far away.
destroyers for Cyburn do have good anti-air, and now he is letting his. He almost lost his stealth boat there. That would have been a
Yeah.
huge loss, but Voodoo
But a lot of
survives.
reclaim now
And
for.
he already has an engineer right there.
Yep.
So Voodoo already in a
He
position
needs
to
to get a
take all
couple
that
factories
mass.
up on this corner. The ACU has retreated. There's only 3 engineers there. If they all die, it'll be a huge lost opportunity.
Big Tech 1 land force from Deathly. It's moving up to the top. There's really, I mean, unless Voodoo moves his ships back, which will buy Deathly time, there's nothing Voodoo can do about
Deathly
this
throwing
force.
away a destroyer. And now he's going to retreat, but it's already taken shots. So that's what stealth will do for you. If you look at Deathly's view, he has no idea what's shooting him. Deathly would be shooting back if.
Well, actually, he doesn't have any radar
Yeah, he
coverage
does
to
not have
begin
any
with.
radar. Yeah. The stealth
So
is a bit
stealth.
redundant there. And looks like Voodoo has broken through the point defense on the left side.
Yes, he
Take a
has.
little more map control. There's also a lot of reclaim here if some engineers go there. And a lot more build capacity now for Voodoo on his naval. He's still behind in mass by about 12.
But it seems like he's putting basically his whole eco into these ships, so he's actually producing them pretty quickly. And he really does need to do something about the middle. Make some Wagners, use his navy, do something. But his 4 mexes are like a gift to Deathly.
I think Deathly needs to make Tech 2 land here. The shields and the Tech 2 flag plus the Tech 2 mobile, the blazes. They're very quick and they'll be very good on this map. And I think he needs the shields to even out this naval battle, because against 3 destroyers he just doesn't have much chance.
Actually,
destroyers.
suddenly Voodoo is completely dominating navy out of nothing.
And
it
a
looked-
big loss for Voodoo up top. He loses the engineer working on point defenses. Those Auroras are going to take over a lot of map.
Yeah, and actually, some Auroras going through to kill the engineer that's reclaiming. So that's another huge loss for Voodoo.
Yeah, so
Speaking of
Voodoo catching
reclaim,
up.
it's about-
10,000 for Voodoo.
And only about 6,700 for Deathly,
Yeah.
so a bit of an advantage there for Voodoo, but not as much as it could have been with these
The
Auroras
cruiser
killing
now.
that NG.
For Voodoo. Deathly
But-
is just going to build up his forces on naval forces.
Pretty soon we're gonna see the eco gap return with all these mexes under threat.
Yeah, these Auroras really denied all that advantage that Voodoo gained with that naval. I think if the Navy stayed back a little bit, at least 1 destroyer, and denied those Auroras, the Voodoo would have the advantage now. But that is not the case.
It looks as though Deathly has managed to stop Voodoo on the bottom left. Point defense with 4 kills, so I assume that had something to do with it.
Tech 2 land for Voodoo. He's making rhinos. Those have the ability to really make a big push on the left side and through the bottom.
If you get some rhinos and maybe mixes some hoplites and stealth in, could be a very
Yes,
lethal
mobile
combination
missile
on the
launchers
bottom.
to stop any kind of Tech 2 point defense or Tech 1 point defense. Yeah, or Medusa Rhino. I mean, stop thinking just Medusas and Rhinos and go for it.
Yeah, you don't have to put a lot of thought into it. Just rhinos to tank and Medusas to kill everything.
It looks like now Voodoo is going to change directions. He's going to move to the bottom.
Seems to be a fan of moving around the middle in these games that we've seen today.
Yeah. And I think this is a big lost opportunity. He could have left at least something to take care of those Auroras.
Yeah, he's just sending Manti in single file if those
And there's
actually
the
move.
drop coming in from Deathly. He's going to try to make a play for the top. And there's so much reclaim. This is a huge opportunity for either player. But Voodoo feels like his bigger opportunity is on the bottom. There are some Tech 2 mask ejectors here, so it'd be big losses for Deathly if he were to lose this position.
Yeah, so definitely looks like Voodoo wants to combine his land and navy on the bottom and take that expansion, but he
Deathly
doesn't
not
really
making
have.
shields. So now this
Yep.
naval battle could be a lot more even.
Deathly just needs to move his shields in combination with his destroyers.
Yep, and he needs something to counter the stealth. So he needs. I like to
And-
just get an air factory to spam scouts and just spam
Yeah,
them
just
across.
just infinite build scouts. It's what I do on Settins against Cyburn. It's really easy and it costs almost nothing.
Yep, not in power. Actually, if you look up the scouts, they do cost a bit of mass. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing compared.
40.
Nothing at
Is
this.
Is it
Something
40?
like 50 or something. Yeah, I think it's more expensive than an interceptor.
Well, if you spam 100 scouts,
It's still
that'd be
not
4,000
that big a deal.
mass. Yeah.
And a bit of an air fight, and looks like a successful drop from Deathly just. Nope. That died, I think, to the falling.
Yeah, something weird
Transport.
happened there. Looks like Voodoo also with a drop here, and this one should be successful, dropping engineers in. There's still
As-
some Tech 2 Rex
Now
left.
we got the
so-
naval battle. This will be very important. Frigates up ahead are going to try to come in. Their main targets are going to be the shields if we can get underneath
Yeah.
the shields.
Yep, and a few frigates managed to do that. Voodoo needs to target fire. He keeps on running.
These shields need to get away from the frigates.
This is just this terrible shield control by Deathly. It just allows the
Yeah.
shields to get massacred. Voodoo doesn't even have to think about it. He just moves his frigates and they'll get underneath
Although
the shield.
more shields now coming in. Much better focus fire from Voodoo on this one.
And the
And-
bottom is completely overrun. Voodoo closing the gap very quickly.
Yeah, this is a big victory now for Voodoo. Although now the shields are going to come back over the 4 destroyers. And Voodoo here, I don't know if he's got the advantage anymore.
This seems like it could end in a draw in this naval fight here. So it might be smart for both
Those
players to
shields
retreat
need
here.
to get targeted and die until they because they're going to come back.
Yeah,
But
they
so
were
far the
all
stealth, I
super-
think, making a very big difference. A lot more shots from Voodoo. Deathly ships just sitting there.
And if Voodoo were to move in, he can easily kill 2 Tech 2 mexes on the bottom. They're right in his
Yeah.
line of movement.
And there's an engineer with too much work for it, for Voodoo on the left side. More drops coming in. Voodoo is going to drop on that naval battle. He's going to get more reclaim. And the
so
mass is
Voodoo
been
now-
even.
Voodoo now reclaiming everywhere, and the mass, well, actually suddenly Deathly ahead in mass. But I don't think that matters at this point because Voodoo's getting all the important reclaim. So that's really what's going to dictate the next few minutes of the game.
What is huge is that Deathly was able to get the top with a point defense, although some Tech 2 moving in that direction. Although the Rhino is notoriously horrible against the Tech 1 point defenses, and there is no Medusa there. So we'll see how long Deathly can survive. Meanwhile, the naval battle continues. And Cybern with the stealth continues to dominate. More scouts are needed from Deathly.
But the thing here about Voodoo's reclaim is that if you look at his eco, without that reclaim he would be stalling unbelievably hard. So really,
Once
this
he runs
reclaim is
out.
it's allowing him to temporarily outspam Deathly.
And Voodoo here could be in trouble. He's doing quite a bit of micro, but there is superior numbers now in ships from
Point defense on
Deathly.
the top proving to be a really big problem, actually taking forever to kill.
Yeah, that's what happens with rhinos. Well, once those walls fall, that's when it will. So 2 kills so far, but yeah.
It's still just ridiculous how long that thing has survived. It's actually gonna kill all the rhinos, which is really stupid, but that has happened. It was a very bizarre.
Yeah, and the
point
engineer
defense.
helping out. I think those engineers made the difference. And
They might have
looks
actually.
like actually Deathly pushing Voodoo back here, minute 26.
That looks
Voodoo
like
retreats.
just like more eco and more shields.
Yeah,
Both players
so-
with 2 Tech 2 naval factories.
and more reinforcements now for Voodoo. This might be a next fight, and Voodoo here with numbers once again. Deathly needs to just to grab what he has just gained. He has
Yeah,
engineers
he's-
moving in that
yep.
direction.
Huge amounts of engineers. He will lose a T2 max here,
Yes.
but when you get this much reclaim, really a Tech 2 max isn't that much.
Yeah. But these rhinos have the ability to do more damage, although the ACU for Deathly now is going to play some defense on the bottom.
Yeah, I think those rhinos should just retreat. They're not going to make any progress against Tech 2 Navy.
Air domination from Voodoo, he's going to use that to support his navy. And that's one
I'm
thing we
fa-
haven't seen is Tech 2 Air has been absolutely
yeah.
absent.
It's fascinating. Neither player has gone Tech 2 Air. Although there really hasn't been a need for it. I think both players are concerned that if they go for Tech 2 Air, they'll be outspammed in Navy.
Yeah, I think power is the Deathly has used his power for the shields, and Voodoo has really been spamming a lot of Tech 1 Air. And also
Voodoo
stealth.
with absolute air domination here. So if Voodoo wanted to go Tech 2 Air, he could make torpedo bombers, and that could assist him in Navy.
I'm very surprised Voodoo hasn't dropped the bottom left.
He's got one engineer moving there very, very slowly.
Yeah, that engineer's been reclaiming for a long time. I really wish they would show the stats, reclaim per engie. So kind of like the veterancy on the engineer would be awesome. Yeah, and actually now, Deathly getting a couple of really nice shots. Once Cyber Navy just sits there, it's very vulnerable against Aeon.
Yeah, because of the high alpha damage, and Cyber has to work harder to recover from that.
And overall, the health for Aeon is much higher with those shields.
Well, one destroyer just got sacrificed there by Deathly, a bit of miscontrol.
Yeah,
And he should be keeping the wounded one in the back, but instead he's presenting it to Voodoo, and that'll probably get killed as well.
yeah, it's a very slow turn for the Aeon destroyer when you change directions by 180 degrees. It just it gets hit many times. Although it just got a little veterans here, so no. No, that
So
one
Voodoo
survived.
dominating air right above Deathly's base.
Yeah, no
and
more
Deathly,
scouting, which means
really-
stealth is going to be so powerful.
And it looks like Deathly doesn't care. He's not making flak or anything.
Yeah, perhaps Deathly here is throwing in the towel because this naval
Yeah,
battle.
there's a cruiser on the way that'll kill most of the air, but won't do anything against Voodoo's navy. You can see Voodoo now running over every part of the map with his Tech 1 and Tech 2. He's
Another
actually
point
ahead in
defense,
max.
21 kill point defense, 22 for
Oh wow!
Deathly.
What,
Absolute massacre.
you see all the dead units caused
Yeah.
by 1 point defense.
And Engineer's going to happily grab that.
3-star veteran there.
Yep. And very good use of engineers from Voodoo, dropping them on the naval battles. That's really where he earned a lot of his advantage in the reclaim. And I can't believe he hasn't dropped that bottom base. There's so much reclaim there. And from both players, when they gained these corners, they were so slow to grab that. I think Deathly did a little better job up on top, but on the bottom, neither player wanted to go there.
So I think the second naval reclaim that Voodoo got was the most important, because at that point the power was exactly even and the production was exactly even, so it just allowed Voodoo to get a few more destroyers, and we saw that as he won the navy there. He was also helped by Deathly not microing properly, but I think Voodoo would have won that anyway.
Yeah, this cruiser this cruiser from Deathly is suicidal. It did get 9 kills, but it went right into the path of the Tech 2 Navy. He needs
And
to get
Voodoo
out of
now
there.
approaching from both sides. Voodoo doesn't even have to rush himself now. he knows that Deathly has nothing because he has scouted his entire base. So he can just sit here and reclaim everything and attack when he's ready if he wants.
Finally, some flag from Deathly.
Now we see the first Tech 2 air of the game. Torpedo bombers coming in from Voodoo a bit too late to actually have any impact on the game.
Yeah, that was a very. I'd love to see some Corsairs here. This Tech 2 power in Deathly's base, I mean, prime target, and the health on that is only a little over 2,000. And Deathly
And
here.
there go. Yep, and there he goes.
Throws in the tower.
But-
30-minute game. That was, I think,
Yeah.
the best one of the 3 so far.
Oh
We're
yeah,
gonna
definitely.
look for some Tag Rock next.